It has now been over a year when I decided to get a motorcycle, and I will tell you one of the reasons that I made that decision was because I was looking at 2 or 3 houses in a smaller town east of here, and in fact I saw several houses that were located on a nice little golf course. I thought how wonderful to have a motorcycle or a bike or a 4x4, a little four-wheeler, to go cruising around the lake. Well, I know it's been a long time, a lot of years, since I last rode a motorcycle with my friend Bert Skiles, but the first thing I could think of was another Honda like he had, and so I went to the website and found in Mexico it's very popular, and I fell in love with this one called the CGL. As it happens, I have become good friends with an Uber driver who originally just drove me around town on days I needed him. But it turns out he is into cars and motorcycles. He's kind of a young guy, 30-something, and so I eventually got up my nerve and we went to the Honda place. And I fell in love with this beautiful purple color. It's called red, but actually they call it wine vino, and I decided against the white, which I originally was convinced was my color, and I was going to go for the vino. Imagine my excitement after months of looking at the CGL 125 Honda online, on YouTube, people talking about it, all kinds of references and glowing reports. Imagine how exciting it was for me to finally see one in person and to sit on it. It was love at first sight. But one thing led to another, and before long I was distracted by all the other brands. For example, Vento. Vento makes some really cool motorcycles, and there were probably 3 in this brand that I especially liked, whereas of all the Hondas out there, there was only one. I was truly decided on the CGL 125, and none of the others interested me. And then I kept seeing this little thing pop up. There were white ones, turquoise, two-tone blue, this blue and black, another one is charcoal gray. I kept seeing these, and these are made by Italika, and I was totally in love with the look. But I wasn't so sure the style and size was me. They're great looking little retro things. Look at the chrome on it. I mean, it's just loaded with chrome. And I love, who wouldn't love the white wall tires? Well, then one day I decided that I had not really been looking at enough motorcycles. So I realized, you know, there's a street over here not far from me, but north a ways on the expressway, and there's like 2 miles of motorcycle dealers, and I decided to go up there with Omar, and I discovered Suzuki. Now, Suzuki doesn't normally interest me. They make a lot of high-performance motorcycles and stuff for the serious rider, and I just didn't think they had anything for me, but I kept seeing them on the streets, lots of them on the streets here. I remember that day and telling this young salesman my situation, and he led me directly to this one, and I thought to myself, wow, this is so cool. I was instantly everything else I had looked at vanished. I knew this was the one for me. But it seemed wrong because I felt guilty that I was betraying my love for the Honda. And yet this Suzuki GN 125F was so cool. Well, I didn't know it, but my friend Omar had been talking to his friend who has an Uber Eats business, and that of course is kind of a delivery thing for food. And he had just bought 2 new Italika FT 125s. And he said, you know, why don't you let Craig borrow one of mine? As it turns out, he had 2 brand new ones with 1 mile each. They were just sitting there in his garage collecting dust, and he said, I'll charge him a little if he wants to rent them from me a week or 2, whatever he wants. So I said, yeah. Well, it did make me a little nervous, taking somebody else's brand new motorcycle. I mean, it still was in the plastic. I had to tear all the plastic and stickers off of this thing. And no, it isn't my style in terms of appearance, but it was a very capable, smooth, powerful little motorcycle. I quite liked it. but I'm very grateful for the experience that it gave me for this reason. I will tell you that I learned something about this particular model that was important in the decision I made later, and that has to do with the transmission. It is a 5-speed, but this particular one had two things which I really did not like. Now, Italika has others. They're not all alike. I found out later. But in this case, you would two things. One is the upshift from 1 through 5 would be down at the toe for first, and then up at the toe or heel for 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it was kind of a combination of down and up, and this quite frankly bothered me because I couldn't remember how that just wasn't part of what I had done in the past. I didn't think. Who knows, maybe, but I didn't feel comfortable with it. Plus, the other thing was that heel-toe mechanism, that lever, did not have proper seating or positioning with my foot. In other words, there was sort of an axis in the center which was too high. I mean, it just didn't seem comfortable. I had to kind of hunt for that heel position to make that shift down or up, as it were, whichever. The heel part of that shifting action was totally wrong. About this time, I was feeling frustration for the first time. After having been just sort of enjoying this process, it suddenly occurred to me that I was frustrated with all of the things I was seeing and all of the things that I liked and didn't like. And you know, I have bought houses quicker than this. I have bought $40,000 cars at the spur of the moment and thought, oh, this is fine, it's perfect for me, no big deal. And here I was looking at all these little details and being so frustrated, and yet I knew it was the right thing. I knew I had to think this through a little bit. So one day I had some free time and I decided, you know, I really have to do this again alone. I'm not going to take anybody with me. I got a taxi and I drove up to Motorcycle Highway, and I went through everything one at a time. I particularly stopped at the Suzuki place and was happy to learn that the shifting problem that I had experienced with the little Italika had been resolved with the Suzuki. In other words, that shift lever problem had a good feel about it. It had good heel-toe action, and so there I was. I was back in the Suzuki game. I went from there to the Honda place and explained myself to this great salesman. He was such a patient young guy, and I learned there with the Honda CGL that not only had they resolved the problem of the heel-toe action lever being proper, but they had also changed the sequence of shifting so that it literally shifted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a down toe action manner, and then using the heel going from 5 down to 1. I mean, they had solved both problems. I was ecstatic. It occurred to me that buying a motorcycle was not at all like buying a car. You can get in almost any car and they're going to shift the same, they're going to steer, they're going to have about the same kind of power and acceleration. But a motorcycle is not like that. They're as different one from the other as I could not have imagined the differences. Well, along the way, I kind of got to thinking about my circumstances. My specific personal needs were what? I'm living in this area on a hill, which means driving the little borrowed Italika meant I was constantly shifting, constantly going around corners that were, you know, we have square corners here and lots of hills, and it really wasn't any fun. I was enjoying it less and less because I was constantly shifting. So I gave some thought to something with an automatic transmission, and all of those are in the scooter class. They have a fully automatic transmission, which is really just kind of a one-speed thing with a centrifugal clutch, kind of like the little cushions we had back when we were kids. I had very much admired the little Italika of Italia since the very beginning, and so one day I went back to the Italika dealer convinced that this is what I was going to get. Not today maybe, but I was going to look at it through different eyes. This time I was really going to study it and get the salesman's opinion. Was this right for me or not? And at the end of that visit, I decided not. Well, I thought to myself, if I'm going to buy something in the scooter class, I probably should get something a little bigger, a little more powerful. Yeah, it wouldn't have white wall tires and all that chrome and all that Italian vintage look, but I needed something more practical, and I had seen this one. This is called the XS150. I had seen this on YouTube, demonstrated by a young woman, I don't know, 20, 25, in there someplace, and she did a most remarkable job of showing off this machine. I was thoroughly impressed. Except that I really like the orange one better. And let me just warn you, I decided one day I'm going to the Italika dealer, I'm gonna buy this one. I'm taking this one home. Or this one, because I like the color and it had a great price. And yeah, I'm confused. And 2 seconds inside the door, I spot this Italika, and I fell in love on the spot. I took a picture, and I told my friend that was with me, this is the one I'm getting. I like to think of this style as a kind of hybrid between a standard motorcycle and a scooter. It has a kind of step through. I mean, you can still get on this thing and be 70 years old and not hurt yourself. It doesn't weigh a lot. The style does not scream, I'm old-fashioned. So, I liked it. I fell in love with this one. They have a showroom full of motorcycles. Would you believe it? I turned around the corner and there was this one. And this XT110RT I knew was meant for me. It was right off the truck. It had been there just a couple of days, a new 2020. The yellow one before me here was also, but I just knew instantly that this is the one I had to have. It is a semi-automatic and not a lot of power, but it's enough for me. Well, a couple of days ago marked the first month that I've owned this little Italika, and it's going in tomorrow for its first service, even though it doesn't have many miles on it. That's the requirement to maintain the warranty. Just now I've been fussing around with it. They put on the license plate crooked. I arranged for them to do the licensing for me at the agency. Because that's something that you can do here in Mexico. It will keep that plate all its life. And the other thing that they did was to put on that cargo box in the back. But it was crooked too, so now finally after a month I have adjusted it. Now I don't use the box much. It comes, a bike comes with, well, this size of bike, or even larger ones, come with some sort of handhold on the back for passengers. And in this case, it's a fairly decent metal one. But in addition, you can attach a mounting plate and then have a cargo box added to it. And I was glad that they put that on for a small fee, but it was crooked. So I have just now, uh-oh, I'm about to fall down. I have just now adjusted it. It mounts on this metal plate here. There's a plastic plate that goes over it just for appearance. The key goes in here, you push this button, and the whole thing tips up and comes loose from the sort of a hinge device, and the whole thing comes off. Or it opens, which is locked now, I can't, but it's very convenient. It's a nice size. It's rather large. It's too big probably, but I opted for the larger size because if I need more groceries, and that's kind of what this is, a grocery bike, then I'll have the space and won't have to worry about it. And that'll come off. Normally it does not go out. It stays here at home. It's very pretty, huh? A little thing. This is in the class of Italika bikes known as trabajo. Trabajo is a Spanish word for work. In other words, these are little workers. They take you to work and back. They are not meant for highway use. They're just for cruising through traffic, in and out of town, and to work, like it says. Inexpensive for the most part. There are 27 models in this working class, the Trabajo Moto class. It's Italika's most popular class of bike. This just came out a week before I bought it, 2020.